What's going on? See, man, Big Brandon Carter. I am here with world-renowned, international best-selling author and podcaster, Jimmy Moore. Man, it's great to have you here.
Hey, man, what's up?
Hey, man, because it's been a long time. I know we tried to do this before, and we had a few false starts, but we finally got to make this happen, man.
It's all good, man. Dude, one time I tried to get a vegan on my show, and the guy totally wigged out on me. It was Durian Rider. You know who Durian Rider is?
Yeah.
Athlete guy, so-called athlete guy that's a vegan over in Australia. And it was like 6-7 times, and he kept going, oh, we're going to get together, mate. I promise we'll get together. And we finally did.
All right, cool. I see. Wait, is that an Apple? Is that the people on podcast can't see this, but we use that. That's the Apple Watch.
That is the Apple Watch.
How you like it?
I didn't really buy it for what it does now. I bought it for what it could do down the road, especially with all the health things. It'll measure your heart rate. It's got a cool little feature where if you haven't stood up, and I'm doing a standing work desk, so if I'm sitting down and at some point it'll start tapping me on the wrist, it does like a little hepatic tap, and it'll say time to stand up. So it reminds me that I need to stand up if I've been sitting for a long time. So kind of cool little things like that. But yeah, it's just a luxury thing.
That's cool. So you get a standing desk. Why do you have a standing desk?
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah. So I have been having some lower back pain, and of course that's probably from the years of the crappy diet that I had and catching up to me after all the years. So I, in January this year, bought one of these desks. And so what it is, I'm looking at it now, it's basically just this big pedestal with a big platform. And I've got all my computer stuff and my schedule and my books and different things all right here. And I stand up when I'm working. You know, a lot of people, they like to sit down at a chair. They're in an office desk or whatever, but standing up, it's amazing, Brandon, how that takes so much pressure off of the compression that would make your back hurt and that kind of thing. Plus, you just kind of get a little bit of, you can move around a little bit standing up, but if you're sitting down, you really can't do a lot of movement. So I've loved it. I really have. And I found that it adds a little more energy to my day that I didn't have before.
I heard Teddy Roosevelt used to stand.
Really?
Yeah, I might have my presidents mixed up, but I know
it might be Abraham Lincoln, maybe. Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln.
Who knows?
Who knows? But I've done that before. Actually, I used to have a music recording studio. Yeah, and I couldn't. The standing desk cost too much. So what I did, I just went to Home Depot and bought some of those big like bookshelves. The thing to put the bookshelves on, and 2 pieces of wood. And I just drilled it in the wall and drilled a desk into the wall into the studios, and I would stand.
That works.
Yeah, no, it's just.
Yeah, this thing wasn't cheap. It was like $800, but dude, it's been the best investment for me to just have all my stuff right here. And I do all my podcast. I do 4 podcasts a week, so I need to be standing up quite a bit. I found I was just kind of getting lackadaisical sitting down doing the interviews, and I lost the energy. If I'm standing up, I can't help but have the energy.
Do you walk around? I know when I like.
Oh yeah, I'm always moving.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Yeah, I walk around. We have a new office. Well, we're testing out this office space for me and my team, and like I walk around in circles yelling commands. And I feel like I get the best. I get that.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. So listen. Tell me more about because you said you had years of a shitty diet. Can you tell me about what your diet's like now, and kind of into your whole philosophy? I know you got the cookbook, and the people would like to hear more about it.
Yeah, so I used to weigh 410 pounds. I was wearing size 62-inch waist pants, 5XL shirts. I was a big boy, and that was at the age of 32. I had done diet. What's that?
That's how old I am now.
Oh, you're 32 now. So congratulations. You're already a lot ahead of the game, more ahead of the game than I ever was at that age. I want to see how you do at 42, though. That'll be interesting to see what happens to Mr. Brandon, but I'm sure you'll be a stud then too. So I ate like there was no tomorrow, Brandon, because quite frankly, I never learned any other way. My mom was a single mom when I was growing up. I had an older brother, and then me, and then my younger sister, and she was trying to feed us on her little, measly little income. So what did that mean? It meant crappy garbage, basically, for the most part. That's what I call processed carbs, crappy garbage. And so we ate Fruit Loops and Ding Dongs and Ho-Hos and Coca-Cola and all that stuff that the standard American diet calls for, because it was cheap. And then I go to college and everybody's like, oh, you go off on your own and you suddenly know how to eat. No, you don't. You eat the way you learned. And so the way I learned was crappy garbage. So I start eating the ramen noodles and the macaroni and cheese dinners and all this kind of course, fast food, and Coca-Cola still is a part of that. It got to the point, Brandon, that right before I started this change, I was drinking upwards of 16 cans of Coca-Cola every single day. How I did not become diabetic doing that.
16 cans a day?
I'm not kidding you. That's how many I drank.
Yo.
So here's a little perspective on that. 1 can of Coca-Cola has 45 grams of high fructose corn syrup. Divide that number by 4. That's 11 teaspoons of sugar in one. I was drinking 16 plus boxes of Little Debbie snack cakes at a time. So, you know, those like Swiss Miss rolls and the oatmeal cakes and all that stuff. I would eat the whole box while we're watching television. And as far as like fast food goes, you know, go to McDonald's and get a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits on the way to work. And oh my gosh, I shudder to think how I used to eat, but that was normal to me. You know, most people, they say, well, you can't believe that that was normal. That was my normal. That's what I knew. So
no, anything can be normal if you get enough exposure to it for a certain amount of time.
Exactly. And so it was my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, who gave me a diet book for Christmas.
Ultimate Cuts?
Gee, thanks, Mom. I didn't know I was fat. Did you say Ultimate Cuts?
Yeah, was that the book you got? Or? It's a good one.
She gave me a bunch of books for Christmas. And this particular year, she gave me Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution. It was in Christmas of 2003. I thought that guy was a whack job. I was reading this book and going, eat less carbs. Doesn't he know that's where you get your energy from?
Yeah.
Eat more fat. Whoa, this guy's a cardiologist and he's telling people to eat more fat. Doesn't he know that clogs their arteries and gives them heart disease? Yeah. I was like, you know, Brandon, I had done low-fat diets and seen moderate success, but never long-term success in my health, especially doing that. So I was like, what the heck? Let's try this thing. So January 1st, 2004, it was my New Year's resolution to lose weight. I ended up losing 180 pounds that year following this. And over the years, I've added to that knowledge. You know, low carb was just the start. I've since discovered that real food is a huge part of this process. You really have to embrace the real food, which we have lots of great recipes in the book that have.
Show again.
What's that?
Show the book again. Oh, the Ketogenic Cookbook.
The Ketogenic Cookbook.
Yeah.
So real food is a huge part of it, and then getting pretty sciencey with the low carb. You know, a lot of people say low carb's a ketogenic diet. They kind of use those terms interchangeably, but a ketogenic diet is a lot more sophisticated than just cutting your carbs. You also have to do some other things with the protein and the fat and testing to see kind of where your levels are. But dude, once you get there and you experience the benefits from it, and when I say benefits, I'm not even talking about weight loss. Weight loss kind of a nice side effect of all this, but all the health improvements that happen, it just makes it worth it all.
Yes, that's what can you explain the difference between a ketogenic diet and a low carb diet? What exactly is the difference and the benefits?
Love that question. And I call them, you know, they're kind of cousins of each other, because a low carb diet can be ketogenic. But the thing about ketosis is it's one of those things that's highly, highly individualized. So I can cut my carbohydrates, I have to 25 to 30 grams a day. So that's very, very low carb. Yeah. But then I also have to moderate down on my protein intake. And this is the one that kind of gets people, especially people who say, well, don't you need protein? Well, absolutely you need protein. You know more than anybody that you need protein, and protein's important. But we don't need too much that our body can't use it all. So if you eat too much beyond what your body can use, it actually can convert. It can't store protein in the body. It has to convert it into a usable energy source. And what it does is it converts it into glucose. So it's a whole process, this long G word we wrote about in my last book, Keto Clarity, called gluconeogenesis. It's just a fancy word for saying that your liver turns that excess protein into sugar. And so if you're trying to become ketogenic and you've got sugar still happening in your body, you cannot become ketogenic.
Right. So you can be low carb. So what you're saying is you can be low carb without being ketogenic, because your protein will still spike your insulin levels above and make your glucose levels go above 100 and spicy insulin.
That's right. You're exactly right. And so a lot of people don't realize that. That was kind of the big revelation in my last book, Keto Clarity, was people had no idea protein had that effect. Now, just to tell you, mine's right around 80 to 100 grams of protein in my diet. That's about 5 ounces of meat and maybe a few eggs, and that's about it. Whereas my wife, Christine, she can actually have around 75 to 80 grams of carbohydrate, upwards of 25 to 30% of her calories from protein, maybe a little more protein than I can have, and a bit less fat than I do. And she has the same ketone levels that I would at, say, 15% protein, 5% carbohydrate, and 80% fat. So it's highly, highly individualized.
So it's not a one size fit all. So
that's
yeah,
right.
If I get high pro, I work with my protein. I don't track macros a lot, but if I do, I get like way more protein than,
Oh yeah.
People, every time I was telling how much protein I recommend, people, start panicking in the comments. But so I mean, sometimes like I go as high as 2 grams of protein per weight
kilogram. Yeah.
I mean, 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight.
Right.
But I'm not trying to be in ketosis,
right. But your body speaks for itself. I mean, you're seeing the results you want. Mostly the people that we're looking at for ketogenic diet would be people who are probably insulin resistant, diabetic. Although I do know some hardcore bodybuilders that try ketosis. They may not go as low in protein as I do, and they don't need to, by the way. But maybe they bring it down to 1.5 per pound of body weight and see what happens, upping the fat. It'd be an interesting experiment for you to do, Brandon.
All right, so how do you test? Yeah, it is interesting. How do I test myself to see if I'm in ketosis? I know testing is a big part.
It's a bit subjective with a few of them. So let me kind of go over all the ketones in the body. So the one that
Jimmy, I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves. What about a lot of these viewers don't know what ketosis means?
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
We're talking as if they know, right?
We all know what ketosis is. Go read my book. No, I'm just kidding.
You haven't read that new Jimmy Moore?
There you go.
It's fire.
So what we're looking at here with ketosis is shifting your body over from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner. So when you're a sugar burner, that means you're burning mostly glucose for fuel. So glucose comes from really carbohydrates. It can come from the gluconeogenesis we just talked about with the protein. And all those things feed into you being a sugar burner. That's why when you see these racers, they fill up on pasta before a long distance race. And then during the race, they're squeezing these goos and things into their body. Well, that's because you only have about 2,000 calories worth of sugar when you're a glucose sugar burner. So what we're trying to do is shift and partition that fuel over from sugar burner to fat burner. So you've got to eliminate all those sources of sugar from your diet, or at least greatly reduce them. So that means you cut down, obviously, on sugar, but also really anything that turns the sugar in the body, and that includes most carbohydrates. Now, that doesn't mean total zero carbs, but it does mean bringing it down to your tolerance level, which, again, will vary. Mine's 25 to 30. My wife, Christine, is upward of 75 to 80, and that's where she needs to be to have ketones. So then the other factor comes in is moderating down on the proteins, because that also turns to sugar. So when you find that sweet spot for your carbs and the sweet spot for your protein, then you just fill up the rest of your diet with fat, and your body over a 4 to 6 week period, sometimes sooner for a lot of people. I got into ketosis very quickly because I was already low carb. It was just a matter of moderating down the protein, and my body went boom, shifted over to the ketones and the fat being the primary fuel source.
All right. So now you have more energy. A lot of people say when they're in ketosis, they have more energy and more mental clarity.
Oh my gosh, the brain, Brandon, loves ketones. I have never had clearer thinking in my entire life than when I'm in ketosis. You know, they talk about these brain drug nootropics and all this kind of stuff. Dude, the best nootropic out there is a ketogenic diet. It is so amazing.
Well, let me ask you, Jimmy, because I did intermittent fasting for like 2 years for the past, and like in the morning I would get I feel like before I break my fast at 3, I would eat between the hours of 3 and 11, and that's when I had so much more productive than any other time of day. Is that
you were in ketosis? Yeah, you were burning ketones. I bet if you had pricked your finger, like we're going to talk about here in a second, and tested your blood to see if you had the presence of blood ketones, absolutely, that's what was giving you that effect. And it's the body's natural mechanism. I mean, this is a survivalist mechanism. You know, if you think about these people, I've seen some movies where people were involved in plane crashes and they didn't have people come get them for days. You know, how did they survive? If they didn't have glucose and there was no other alternative way to fuel themselves, their bodies would shut down within 24 hours and they'd be dead. But they don't die. In fact, they probably get a lot of energy. You think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, you know, they had a big kill and they'd eat the animal, but once it was gone, what did they do? How did they survive in those maybe week or two until another kill? Well, yeah, a little bit of vegetation, and maybe small animals, but for the most part, it was fasting times and the ketones that kicked in because of the fasting.
That's what I always tell people. It's like, yo, fat, I mean, that's what fat is for. It's supposed to be used for energy.
Yep.
For the caloric scarcity, right? That's why
that's what our hunter-gatherer ancestors went for first. When they had a big kill, they didn't go for the lean meats and whole grains.
Yeah.
They went for the brain because that's where the fat was. They went for the heart. That's where the nutrient-dense parts of the animal was. I mean, they are our way of looking at nutrition now of lean meats and all this kind of stuff. We're so backwards from the way our bodies were meant to run. It's amazing how they get away with that.
It's like, because if me and you went out and killed a buffalo with either, you know, and we brought it back, we would eat it all, like more than we need. Yeah. We super full, right? Because we didn't know, and we might gain some fat, right? If we're going,
that's right.
We're going to a surplus.
Yep.
That was what we were supposed to do. Like we wanted to, because we didn't have refrigerators back then. So we saved that food for, like, we needed to eat it all, right? Because we didn't know we need more. So it was saved later as fat, and then the fat is supposed to be used for time the caloric scarcity, right?
See, it all makes sense. It all makes sense.
Same thing?
Absolutely.
Man, Jimmy, we're like the same guy.
You're the much better looking version.
Depends, hey, Jimmy, it depends on who you ask, brother.
I got more hair. That's about it.
Hey, that's a deal breaker. That's a deal breaker for some people.
That's funny.
All right, so how did you get into this, and what results did you? I see you lost 100 pounds the first year on Atkins, but what happened when you went into ketosis, and how did you get involved in it?
Yeah. So yeah, I did the 180 pounds in 2004. And over the years, like I said, I've been doing my podcast. I've interviewed all the experts in the world. A few vegans. I do got to get you sometime.
We're an expert out, Jim.
Well, I've done 1,000 episodes and I'm on my way to 10,000. So I'll fit you in there somewhere, Brendan. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a progression. I mean, I've added new things. The real food aspect, the paleo community kind of came along and got me onto that. And then keto kind of came around in 2012. I read this book called The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance by a couple of researchers, Steve Finney and Jeff Volek. And those guys in there talked about measuring for blood ketones. And I was like, blood ketones, what are they talking about? You know, most of the people, when you talk about ketosis, they think about those little sticks that you pee on called keto sticks. I'm sure you've seen those before.
I never peed on a stick.
Oh, really? Okay. So it's very cheap way to measure for a ketone that's measured in the urine. It's called acetoacetate. That's the name of the ketone in the urine. So you pee on the stick and it turns pink to purple and whatever. And it's supposed to show you your level of ketones. Well, that's been the traditional way to test. But what Volek and Finney said in their book was there is actually this device that is like a glucometer that measures for blood ketones. So the one that I found is the best one out there. There's a couple, but the one that's the very best is Precision Extra. That's the one that you can measure for the level of the blood ketone. It's called beta-hydroxybutyrate. Don't want to get too technical on you, but beta-hydroxybutyrate, BHB, is the one that's in the blood, and that's the one that's the gold standard. If you want to know where you are in trying to pursue ketone production, that's the one to use.
Hassan. Well, can you say the name of the monitor again?
Yeah, Precision Extra.
Precision Extra.
That's it.
Oh, the Precision Extra glucose monitor.
Blood ketone monitor. Yep.
Blood ketone monitor. All right, cool. As you were. No, that's the.
Thank you, sir.
That's the answer.
So then there is one other ketone that I want to mention because there's some new technologies coming out on it, and it's called acetone. It's the one in your breath. So there's some interesting ones that are out there. There's only one on the market right now. I'm going to try to show it to you since you got a video on. It's called Ketonics. And basically, you plug this in to the back of your computer or device or whatever and charge it up. And once it stops blinking, you can blow into it for 10 seconds and it gives you your level of ketones in your breath. It's not a precise one either. The best one is if you prick your finger, that Precision Extra monitor is going to be your best.
Can it be blood from anywhere? Like I ripped my hand open today lifting weights. I just,
oh, you
want to see it, Jimmy?
Oh, no.
I have a video where I ripped it off. I ripped it in. I can show it to you. It's like it's real.
I'm going to do the rest of the interview blind. I'm so squeamish. Usually what I do is prick the side of my finger. What'd you say?
You're not bleeding. You're not trying hard enough. You know?
I'll have to remember that when I flip my tire in my backyard here later. So, yeah, pricking the side of your finger I find is the best because it's where you have the least amount of pain that comes from pricking. It still hurts, but not like what your blowout hand just showed me.
Yeah, hey, man,
Was that from snatching? What'd you do to do that?
Man, I was it started. It's an old wound from like I did. It was called a 360 muscle up.
Yep.
And I ripped it like that, and then I ripped it again.
It's never healed.
I didn't heal enough, and I was like, because I was like with it, and then like.
Is that your ring finger? Yeah.
That's the other hand. The other hand. Yeah.
Oh.
It's all good. I went back to lifting weights. I just said, hey, I need a Band-Aid. Give me a Band-Aid, and I went back.
And that's why you're a stud, man.
Hey, Jimmy. I'm just trying to do the best I can. Do the best I can.
Represent.
All right. So I get one of these contraptions, and then I do what with it?
So a lot of people ask, well, when do I test? If I get this monitor, I want to know, what's the best time to test. So what I did a whole year experiment in 2012 to 2013 where I tested morning and night, sometimes every hour on the hour. I just wanted to see what was going on with those ketones and the blood sugar. So I test it first thing in the morning. And so that's probably a really good time. So you've just had an overnight fast and you're just waking up. Prick your finger and see how you're doing. Now, you should have on that monitor at least 0.5. If you're not 0.5, then you're not quite into nutritional ketosis.
0.5.
Ideally, you want to have over 1.0. That is your ultimate goal to someday, somehow get over 1.0 when you wake up in the morning. If you're doing that, then you're in a really strong state of ketosis for the morning time because that morning reading is going to be the lowest of the day. You won't have higher ketones than you have, or lower ketones, than you have at the beginning of the day. And then the other time to test is at least 4 hours after your last meal. So let's say you go do a workout session, you come home, you have your meal at 5, 6 o'clock at night, test 4 hours later, and then that'll make sure that all the food is out of you, the blood sugar spikes that's going to happen or whatever is all out of you, and then you get a good reading for your ketones, and that will tend to be your highest reading of the day right before you go to bed. So prick your finger, test it, and that one should be like almost double what your morning reading. So if your morning reading was 0.7, your night reading should be around 1.4. It's not an exact thing, but it's going to be pretty close. So if it's not, if it goes down, then maybe you should evaluate, did I have too many carbs? Did I have too much protein? Did I have stress today that I didn't deal with well enough? Because stress can also impact your ketone levels. Did I sleep well the night before? If you didn't sleep well, that can also add cortisol, which raises your blood sugar, which brings your ketones down. All these lifestyle things come into play as well. Everybody wants to just look at diet, but it really is the totality of everything you're doing. And you're going to love this. Exercise increases ketones as well. Nice. Don't test right after. As you know, if you test your blood sugar right after lifting, what is it? It's a skyrocket, didn't it? Because all the glycogen stores are basically in your bloodstream. Right. So what you want to do is make sure that has calmed down, wait at least 2 hours after an exercise session, and then test. You're going to see your blood ketones go up.
Okay. So how long do you want to be in ketosis to burn fat? Like, you want to be in all the time, 24 hours? Can you do it like, because you said it seems like I'm in ketosis in the first part of the day because I'm doing intermittent fasting, but I'm confident I'm out of it after my first meal because I'm eating like a king on his birthday. those next 8 hours. Right. How does that apply to someone like me or someone who's following some of the protocols that I like, intermittent fasting type protocol, or is it applicable at all?
Absolutely. So I think because you do have such a high volume of food when you do eat, you are getting kicked out at that point, and that's totally cool. There are people who advocate for coming in and out of ketosis, and so that's not a bad thing at all. I think the goal is when you're intermittent fasting, you're probably being sustained by ketones, and so the ketones are going to go precipitously higher, and then you eat, brings them back down again, maybe not back down totally to zero, but down enough that your body's going to have to start generating them again and go through the whole process again. But that's what your meals, that's where the eating comes into play. You don't want to go hog wild on carbs and protein and knock yourself out and undo all the things that you're trying to do. You really have to focus in on, if you eat a meal, even if it's a lot of calories, that's okay. The calories isn't a big deal. It's getting those macros that are right for you. So mine is the 25 to 30 grams of carbs, the no more than 80 to 100 grams of protein in the whole day. And you mentioned intermittent fasting.
You said calories aren't a big deal. Like, did I hear right?
You heard that right.
Oh, Jimmy, come on, man. It sounds like heresy. Explain yourself, Jimmy.
Heresy, I say. So, yeah, I mean, when you're eating to satiety, and this is important because as someone who used to drink 16 cans of Coca-Cola and whole boxes of Little Debbie snack cakes at a time, satiety really wasn't something that came on the radar screen. Yeah. But once you go ketogenic, Brandon, it's amazing how your body will respond. And you're like, whoa, this is what normal is supposed to feel like. And so when you're eating, you don't overstuff yourself because you're not feeding yourself with those things that make you hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. Fats and proteins are so satisfying. You can only eat so much of them before you start to throw up because you're so satisfied.
Right. So you're saying you'll be in a deficit almost. If you're in ketosis, you're probably in a deficit, caloric deficit already. Like, it's not something is that what you're saying? Or is you saying it just doesn't matter because you're in ketosis?
No, it does matter, but yeah, your first point was spot on. And there was actually a research study that Dr. Volek did where he put people on a very calorie-restricted, low-fat, high-carb diet, and then he said to the low-carb, high-fat people, eat as much as you want. So you'd think the low-carb, high-fat people would have 1,000 more calories than the controlled, 1,800 calories. Well, guess what happened, Brandon? The low carb group had exactly the same number of calories as the one that controlled their carbs. The only difference was they had low carb, high fat to satiety, and they stopped eating when they got full. And the low fat people had to put up with the calorie restriction and the hunger and the moodiness. And people that are hungry, you know how they get.
Oh man, yeah. When, man, that's why I tell like women, I'll be like, yo, listen, eat something now. Like, I know it's about to happen. And you want to say something you regret.
That's right.
What if? All right. So the diet I have this real simple diet that I like, that I've seen it work for. This is one of my protocols, and it's the simplest one. I just want to get your take on this. What you think, man, from your perspective?
Yeah, sure.
I just tell people, hey, man, just eat meat and green, like leafy vegetables all day, right? And like, you don't have to worry about the port. Don't even worry about the portion so much. Just eat it like you said, to society, right? I mean, till you're satisfied, right?
Yeah.
But I advocate eating carbs post weight training, like resistance training, in order to spike insulin levels. Yeah. Yep. It's anabolic, right? But that's been, I see everybody I've put on that diet who's adhered to the protocol loses weight, and that's usually what I do when I'm trying to cut up for like a show or a vacation or something. Like,
yep.
How does that fit? Does that, from your perspective, does that seem like something that well, I know it's effective because I've seen it work, but what's your take on that?
Well, I know it's effective too, and I've heard lots of people report on that kind of thing. So what are the carbs in the carb up?
The carb is like just post workout. It's like I kind of like, man, I
sweet potatoes.
Like, too hard, You can be whatever. Yeah, just don't think about it too hard, honestly. But I know you're getting kicked out of ketosis if you do something like that.
Oh, you for sure are, and I can appreciate the wanting to spike the insulin for the muscle building effects of that. I totally believe that, and I think in that case it would be a temporary out of ketosis thing because you're using the carbs strategically to build the muscle. I'm totally cool with that because I think the next day you'll be back in ketosis again.
Right, because your body, like how I figure is your body. Your body kind of knows that it's what to do with the glycogen at that point. When post resistance training, your body knows that your muscles kind of he knows what to do with this thing. Like he'll use it the way it's supposed to be used. As opposed, that's what it's any way you use it, how it's supposed to be used. But I mean, he'll use it the way you want it to be used post resistance training, because your everything's out of whack after you lift weights. Like your stress level, everything's up. So like your body kind of uses those carbs more efficiently. This is more a hypothesis of mine, but I've seen it work in the field, and so
I think it depends on the dosage too. So it goes back to that highly individualized. Somebody like me, post workout, post lift session, maybe a half of a sweet potato is probably all I need to get that insulinogenic effect that would build the muscle. Whereas if I had a whole sweet potato, it may take me a little while to get back into ketosis, because that's a carb overload. So you're trying to balance that. How much am I getting to get the positive effect I want from the insulin for the muscle building without getting the blood sugar negative effects long term over the next few days to take me all over again, having to start over. So again, I think it's in the dosage. You have to be very careful about that and knowing where you stand.
So yeah, so if ketosis was something that was like that if you were adhering to basically if you're adhering to a ketosis protocol, you want to be testing your blood, your insulin levels.
Yeah, and blood insulin is extremely hard to test because you can only do it at a doctor's office. There's no home
levels. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, you're good. But yeah, blood, you want to be testing to see where you are. And like I said, during my experiment, I sometimes did every hour on the hour, and I'd go do a workout session. I'd see right after the workout session, ketones would be to pot. I mean, it would just be way down for the obvious reasons we talked about a while ago. Your blood sugar goes up, that brings your ketones down. But 2 hours later, they're back up where they were before you worked out and above that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man. Well, yeah, sounds great, Jimmy. Can you tell us about your new book? Can you tell us where the people can find you and your new book, and how people can find out more about you and your protocols?
Sure. So the new book is called the Ketogenic Cookbook, Nutritious Low Carb, High Fat Paleo Meals to Heal Your Body. It's available really wherever books are sold. Here in America, it's Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, all the usual suspects. Up in Canada, we have really good distribution for all your Canadian listeners. They have it in Amazon Canada, of course, but also the Costco Canada's up there, and they have a big chain called Indigo Chapters up there that's kind of like our Barnes & Noble here. In fact, it just hit number. Oh, you've seen those stores?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just hit number 3 in all cookbooks for the Canadian list, which I thought was pretty cool. Number 1 was a vegan cookbook, and then number 2 was like the Thug Kitchen cookbook. But right there at number 3 was the Ketogenic Cookbook. So I was like, yeah, baby.
Congratulations, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Awesome. So that was cool.
I'll put a link to those in the description.
Awesome. But yeah, we included a lot of recipes in there, a little more information in there about ketosis. So if you want to learn how to do this, of course, I wrote a book about it last year that was a huge bestseller called Keto Clarity, which also gives a lot of the science behind this as well. If you want to, and it's sciencey, but my style is layman's terms science. So you don't kind of get the over your head terms. We try to explain everything really simple for you. Awesome. Now, you asked about my other work. Right. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
So your podcast is too, it's pretty popular, right?
Yep. So the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show is about to be right around 1,000 episodes. I've been doing this for a long time now, Brandon. So back when they didn't even have microphones, I had to just yell through a tin can. No, I'm just kidding. So, it feels that way though sometimes. But yeah, it's called the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show, thelivinlowcarbshow.com. It's on iTunes. And it's always gratifying to put information out there. I get to interview literally everybody except for Brandon Carter, and that's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Hey, man. Hey, I feel 1,000 people was more important to you than me. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, we'll get you on the list. I promise you. All
right, man. All right, well, I appreciate your time, Jimmy, man. And everybody, make sure you check out stuff. I'll put links to everything Jimmy talked about in the description, so you guys can check it out. Both on in the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video if you're watching this on YouTube. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brandon.